everything that I've been telling them, now they're gonna see what it was all for, and I hope it's not a disappointment. That was the name of the mask on the tag, was Jester mask. So we were like, he's the Jester, and that's it.
So welcome to the Yo Brother podcast, Colin. We appreciate you being here, and congratulations on the Jester.
Thank you very much.
Now I got to ask you, are you, because I'm in Central Florida, I'm in Orlando area, and Mike is in
No
Boston.
shit.
Yeah. Now, don't scold me for not being out there at the premiere last night at City Walk, but are you a local guy?
Yes.
You are. Okay. I was trying to
Mhm.
kind of piece that together, and I couldn't quite kind of nail it down. And kind of looking up, before when we were researching for the interview with you.
Yeah.
Now I got to ask you. So last night was that the first screening of the film?
It was the first screening with people who actually paid money to watch the movie. Yeah.
How'd it go?
That must have been a thrill.
Before we get
That must
into
have
the
been.
background and stuff, how'd it go?
Yeah.
It was a lot of friends and family, so it was probably the most positive reception to the movie that I'm going to get. Where afterwards, grandma and mom and dad come up and they say, it was very good. And so it was a lot of that. And so I felt really good at the end of the night.
That's high praise.
Yeah, not gonna beat that.
When you say that too, because Mike and I have talked about that with some other artists on the show, is it's a very vulnerable kind of position to be in, right? Once you've got this kind of baby that you've raised and you kind of release it out to the world, like we can't completely relate to that part of it, but that's got to be an interesting thing to go through, I would think.
No, you are absolutely correct. It is a very, very vulnerable thing. And I realized last night it's even more vulnerable when these people that are finally seeing the movie have heard you talking about the process of making it for the past year. So it's like, well, everything that I've been telling them, now they're going to see what it was all for. And I hope it's not a disappointment. And there's something that happens internally to you where, I've seen the Jester feature, 1,000 times now. I know how it ends. And the second when you're watching it in an audience that has nothing to do with the movie, that wasn't a part of the making of it, they're seeing it with fresh eyes for the first time, you don't even have to get to certain parts of the movie. The second that movie starts playing and you're sitting among all these people that are seeing it for the first time, you in your brain can see every problem in the movie for the rest of the 90 minutes. You're just like, oh my God, none of this is working. None of this is going to work. I've seen it 1,000 times, and suddenly you're seeing it through their eyes, and you're seeing all of these new kind of things that surprisingly work, and then things that you dreadfully become aware of don't work.
And this started as shorts, right?
Yeah.
Are the shorts related to the movie, or are the shorts completely a separate thing?
The shorts, for the most part, are a completely separate thing. The shorts themselves are pretty much separate from each other, which was a difficulty because we wanted to stop making Jester shorts. So we were like, let's end it with 3. But how do you end an anthology? Like, how do you end something that the first 2 have nothing to do with one another? So we just make a 3rd one that also has nothing to do with the first 2, and then that's the big finale. Like, I don't know, that was its own challenge. And then we had talked for years, just idly, and I never really seriously considered it, just because so many people asked, like, what would a Jester movie be like? Like, if we made a Jester feature, what would that be? And we always ended the conversation by saying, it would never work. We could never make a Jester feature film. Like, thinking about the shorts alone, like, the Jester was made for the short film format. We intended him to be kind of like an urban legend, on screens, like the creepy Reddit posts or, campfire stories or whatever gets you off with that kind of like creepy urban legend horror stuff. Like, we wanted the Jester to kind of fit in that tone. And it's just like, how do you sustain that for 90 minutes without making it feel like Sam from Trick or Treat or something like that. You know, it's
Mhm.
and then when you get the call and somebody who's like, I'm a real guy and I want you guys to make a Jester feature film, what do you say? And you say, yes.
Right.
we,
That's the
we'll
right answer.
we'll figure it out.
Right. Well, if you don't mind, so what we like to do is kind of go back a little bit and sort of get first your origin story,
Oh
and
boy.
then kind of come back around to the Jester. So, like, how did you get into filmmaking, and sort of what's that background?
It was one of those weird things where, like, as a kid, I always loved movies, which is like a cliche for every filmmaker to say is, as a kid, I love movies. I was somebody who loved watching the behind the scenes of movies just as much as the movies themselves. And there was something that was like, when I was a kid and I learned that they would build inside sound stages to make it look like the outside, it like blew my mind, just like it's real life magic what they do. And it didn't diminish the effect that the movies had on me. It only made me appreciate them more. And I never, for years, considered making it a career. It was always just I like movies, and I actually wanted to go and be an audio engineer. And I didn't really know why. It was one of those things where you're just like, yeah, I play guitar, I like music, so why don't I do that? But I didn't. Movies were what I was interested in, and it wasn't
Mm.
until I made a short film in high school on an iPod Touch with a friend of mine,
Wow.
and cut it together with a Windows Movie Maker, and that was it. I was just like, "Oh, I like this. Whatever this is, I like this. How can I do more of this?" And I changed. I was set to go into a technical school for audio engineering after high school, and at the last minute switched to filmmaking because I realized, like, I love it. Like, why don't I
Mhm.
do what I love rather than the
Right.
thing that's going to be a job? So yeah, I'm glad that I did that, and it's you have to be passionate. You have to be. The filmmaking is impossible. Like making movies at any
Right.
level, at any
Right.
budget, is impossible.
Now the schooling, was that in Florida?
Yeah, there was the first institute. That's
Oh,
where
okay.
Mike and I met.
Okay. All right. And now Michael Sheffield you're talking
Mhm.
about, who is your co-writer, right? And
Yeah,
so now do you and Michael go back to the origin of the shorts, which I think that's kicks off like in 2016. Is that right? When the first short for the
yeah.
Jester comes out? Okay.
First short is 2016. Everything I've made with Mike. That goes back to like 2013, I think, was the first thing that we made together.
Hmm.
That makes
So
it more fun.
yeah, I know. 10 years later, we get to do this, and that was such a relief when they I get the call and the offer to make the Jester, and then they say, oh, and that guy who was in it, you can bring him too because he was good as the Jester. It's like, yeah, I was gonna do that anyway. Like
Yeah.
there is no Jester without him, and I would have collaborated with him on the story, regardless of whether that he was part of the production or not. Like
Yeah, that's
uh,
your
having a partner that you trust creatively like that is important, and somebody that you can look at a certain point and say it's kind of a shit idea, right? And they go, yeah, and like finding what doesn't work is I think maybe more important than trying to find the right thing that does.
yeah, you need that honesty for sure. That's true.
Yeah.
And now so for those that don't know, Mike plays a pretty significant role in this film, yeah? He is the man behind the mask, correct?
Yeah, he is the title of the film, really.
Yeah,
And one thing, he's very meticulous, hat just right. He's always fixing his gloves.
the
Yeah.
tie,
Yet and he's filthy, you know.
Right.
And I didn't know if you did that on purpose, that dichotomy of this guy that's really kind of ragged, but is always adjusting everything, just
Mhm.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, the I wish I had a more, like, inspirational, like, creatively inspirational story about how we developed the costume and everything, but I like the truth, which is we got it on sale. It was in the shorts, the mask we bought from a Walgreens for $6. And then
Wow.
we went to a Spirit Halloween, and we went to the clearance rack, and they had that solid orange suit. And I remember asking the guy who worked there, I was like, "It's just so orange. Like, do you guys have something that's not so orange?" And he did like the laziest but most effective sales tactic that completely worked on me, where he was like, "Nope, it's a clearance, so that's all we got. But I mean, orange is like Halloween." And I was like, "You're right. That's true." So
I'll take it.
I'll take it. And
I'll take it.
it was so orange to me that I wanted to break up the orange and not make it look so loud. So the way that the thing we came up with was, let's dirty it up. Let's kind of break up that orange with a lot of grit and grime and make it look like he's been living and wearing the suit for years. And it's one of those things where, like, you can see the Jester from a distance, and he looks like a guy who's, dressed super nice and wearing his suit, and he's got the mask and everything. And then you get closer and you see, oh, the suit is dirty and his neck is all kind of fucked up. Like, there's something wrong with this guy upon closer inspection. And it is just more of that, like, what is more interesting? A more interesting suit is one that's dirty and not completely clean. So always going with the more interesting, and especially the weirder choice, because we always said just make the Jester weird.
I love that story about the costume and that whole. I mean, you think of Halloween, right? It's like the Captain Kirk mask, and boom,
Right,
they
yeah.
do a little. It's no different, and now let's hope it becomes as iconic as that.
Well, let's put him in a top hat, and in the shorts we got the toppest hat that we could find. It's
Very
super
tall, but for the most part, the look is remained the same. Really, right?
Yeah, I really wanted to not change the look as much as possible, and if we could get away with using the mask in the feature, I would have. But we didn't make the mask, we don't own it, so we can't use it. But that gave us the opportunity to make it our own, and somehow we got Jason Baker to make the new Jester mask in the movie, who is like the coolest, and the guy who made the grabber mask in the Black Phone. He does a lot of wrestler masks
That's
and everything.
amazing.
Like,
That's amazing.
it's like, oh, that guy's gonna do that. Yeah, sure. Like, what's that gonna look like? And so getting to see his concept art and everything, and talk about the changes that we wanted to make, it was incredible.
Why Jester? Because when Dan said his name's Colin, I said, must be European, because Jester is in like Shakespeare, and not a lot of jesters in American literature or whatever. So where did you come up with, using a jester?
Walgreens. That was the name of the name of the mask on the tag, was Jester mask. So we were like, he's the Jester, and that's it. I wish I could say that there was some underlying meaning, but it is, it's like, it's like we didn't even think about it. It was just, we called him the Jester because that's what he was. And it's something that I heard in a commentary Lee Wanell say for The Invisible Man, when he's talking about, like, you don't always go into a project like fully having like subtext and theme and things like that fully nailed down. Sometimes you find that stuff along the way, and finding what the Jester was we didn't go into it with the idea that, like, he mocks people, like jesters did back then. They were the only ones who could mock and not be ordered dead by a king or something. Like,
right.
That's what the Jester does, and he humiliates people. Like, that's kind of his tactic. And in the feature, we expanded that by, he's not just humiliating you, he's finding the one thing that you don't like the most about you, and he kind of picks at that.
Oh, that's a perfect. Yeah, I think that comes through in the film for sure. That's a perfect description of it. Yeah. Was the idea of the character already fully fleshed out? In other words, like, the mask, that just helps you put the skin on a character that you'd already developed and had the idea about? What was the idea of that character itself?
We had made, I think, maybe 2 horror shorts prior to the Jester. We were, like, every year for Halloween, we would try to make a horror short, which meant we decide to start shooting on October 25th, and then wonder why we couldn't get it out on YouTube by the 31st. But the two horror shorts I think that we had made before the Jester was Creep and On My Way, and they both kind of have similar antagonists in that they are like maniacal and brutal and like animalistic and psychopathic, and we're wearing masks and things like that. And the masks was a way that we could reuse the same actors for multiple roles, which is why we did it in On My Way. But for this one, I think the main intention was, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do like the reptilian brain guy who just like runs at you with an implement and wants to beat you to death. Like I want somebody who is so in control of the situation and like 3 steps ahead. And there is something, you might not know what it is, but there is something working inside of him that you are not privy to, some logic that he is following. And I think the thing that sells the first short and what made me love the idea the most was the very last shot of the first short is him performing the same trick for new people, and then he lets them go because they react differently to it. And it's like, we don't know what the rules of the Jester are, but we know there are rules, and that's enough for me, to know that he operates by a certain kind of standard that he has set for himself, or his own internal morals. And that's so much more interesting than what we were doing before.
We talked about that specifically when the kid comes up to him, trick or treat.
Trick or treat.
And he does this little, trick for him and his bag. And both of us were like, why didn't he just waste those kids?
Yeah, and I think that is, for me, that is part of what makes the Jester so... It can make him scary, but to me, it just makes him more fun and interesting, is that he is unpredictable. There are some slashers where they are just like bulldozers. They come into the room and they're going to hack and slash whoever crosses their path. And and there are absolutely times where that's the movie you want to watch. But we wanted to do something different. And there was a moment in the 2018 Halloween, the David Gordon Green one. So it was 2018, right, that came out. There's a nice long, there it is. Yeah, that one.
There's right there.
Nice long tracking shot of Michael where he's walking through the neighborhood, and he kills a few people in that tracking shot. But the most interesting part of that shot for me is where there's that like gut churning moment where you hear a baby crying in the living room, and Michael walks up to the like cradle that the baby is in, and he looks down at the baby and he considers it for a moment, and then he moves on. And it's like, you don't know what Michael was thinking, but there is a reason that he didn't kill the baby. And it's so interesting that he didn't, that he isn't just like brutalizing every single thing. You never know if you're going to be the kid that he just grabs by the shoulders and then lets run away, or if you're going to be the guy he brains with a hammer.
That's a great point. It's the unpredictability that makes it kind of more terrifying, really, when you think about it.
It hopefully makes each interaction interesting, because you never know if he is going to waste those kids, or if he's going to just kind of, is he going to waste them in a way that's like he would an adult, or is he going to just kind of traumatize them, but in a kid-friendly way?
Yeah. Well, for the record, he should have wasted the one kid, but that's for another episode.
Yeah, he should have, shouldn't he?
He had it coming. He had to go. Can you talk to us a little bit about so Eduardo Sanchez, who executive produced the film, right? How do you get connected with him? And what's interesting, because I know he's got Florida roots. He does, University of Central Florida, obviously famous for the Blair Witch Project. But how do you guys get connected on this project?
It really was just through Epic Pictures. Epic are who contacted me and asked me if I wanted to make the feature. And then they were in partnership with Cinematic Productions, which is a Maryland-based production company. They're kind of the boots on the ground that make the feature with me. And Ed is associated with them. So luckily, Ed, I would say, liked the idea enough that he supported it. And when you have the support of the guy who kind of, changed the face of independent filmmaking forever in the late
Yeah.
90s. It's I'll take it.
Yeah.
Especially for this genre, for sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Maryland thing, so that's what I was wondering about, because from the very first shot of the film, I said, "Oh my God, that's Carroll Creek in Frederick, Maryland, where I lived. I lived, Colin, there for 12 years."
Wow. So you have lived in both places that all the Jester stuff's been shot, Central Florida and Frederick, Maryland.
Yeah. Now, okay. So I wanted to ask about, and I wonder if it's like Claremont area or something, but yeah, clearly Patrick Street, South Market, all that, which is a great location to film. It looked beautiful on film.
Yeah.
The forest, so this big whole sequence you have with this in this forest kind of setting. Where was that at this harvest festival, this Halloween celebration? Where was that? Was that in
Yeah.
Florida?
No, that was everything in the feature was
That's all in
shot
Maryland.
in Maryland, and that was at Markoff's Haunted Forest.
Oh, so legitimately. Oh, right. With the okay. See, I wasn't as familiar with that.
Yeah,
And this
I
was
think it's like 40 minutes south, maybe from Frederick. I
okay.
think.
Okay. Yeah, and this was last fall, right? That you were filming up there?
Yeah, end of October into early November. It's 3 weeks,
Perfect
14
time for
days.
this.
Yeah.
Perfect time for this. Yeah.
Speaking of locations, was the convenience store, was that located in Maryland, or was that a set?
Yeah, everything with the exception of the forest festival stuff, everything was shot in Frederick.
My favorite sequence was in the convenience store for a couple of reasons. I thought the two cops were really good. They were like, you just grabbed two cops and said, "Hey, just stand there and do your thing."
Yeah.
But it was the way you moved the Jester. Like, there wasn't jump scares. He would just kind of appear, and you'd move him around in ways I couldn't quite figure out how you moved him without the set moving, or if you did it with just the camera, or was Michael just ducking down and crawling, or what?
Is there a specific, because in the convenience store scene there, I can think of two moments where the Jester moves in kind of a weird way, and one of them where he's doing like the kind of the shark fin thing down the aisles.
Exactly.
Yes.
That I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just told I told Mike what the thing that I wanted to do was. I was like, I just want to see like the top of his head, his hat, like going down the aisles and everything, and then call action, and then it's like he's like riding a shopping cart or something. Like he's just perfectly smooth, and I was like, what the hell is he doing back there? And he was just rolling his feet, just walking. So that's all Mike. And then for the other shot, which is the cops are kind of confronting the Jester and telling him to take off his mask and everything, and he walks off to the side and then walks into frame and appears behind Emma.
Yeah.
That was a double. So
okay.
we had I requested somebody be on set that has a similar build to Mike,
Right.
Mhm.
and that we had a spare suit.
Hmm.
Really, all we needed was the pants.
See,
And,
that I didn't want to give that movie magic away, but I
no,
was
that's
curious.
that's
It was so fast. I knew
yeah.
that.
It's all about the timing and the blocking, and
Yeah.
trying to shoot it in a way that's like, yeah, I mean, we all know probably what's happening, but just make it look interesting at least. We're a super low budget movie, so nothing's gonna be a surprise,
Yeah,
really. How did they do it? It's just like,
Mhm.
That was me. I was trying to figure out how you did it. I thought
yeah,
maybe the aisle in the convenience store whipped around, or you can build sets that do anything now, but like you said, it's a low budget.
yeah.
Do it kind of
It was a tight space too. It was very cramped in that convenience store. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you enjoyed that sequence. I was hoping it would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a couple of times I'm like, who's creepier? Is it the Jester or this guy that runs the convenience store? I mean,
Right? Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Oh, you know what? He shot his shot, and it didn't work out.
No, it did
Yeah.
not work out. So, how does the casting work on a film like this? Is there just a kind of a casting call of some sorts that happens, or how does that come together?
Yeah, it's a lot of from because I was just sent the kind of filtered uh, self tapes that were
Mm,
I wasn't getting all of them. I was getting the ones that they chose, but yeah, they're putting up casting notices. They're reaching out to contacts that they have locally with theaters and things like that, people that they know and have worked with before. There was not,
mm,
unfortunately, time or money to do a lot of like unset pre-production. So
yeah.
when writing the script, I kept all the locations very generic and all the actions in those locations very basic in the script because I didn't know where they would be taking place, like what places we'd be able to access when
Mhm,
shooting. And
yeah.
some things would have to change, and like the convenience store figuring out what that blocking would be in such a tight space. But yeah, it was getting self tapes from actors, and
Well, you
I
look
had my little Excel spreadsheet that I made where I was not ranking, but just picking my favorites of who I wanted for each role, which I guess is ranking. But yeah, everything was done remotely.
you got lucky with the two young women. I thought they were both really good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is
And,
that is that is it Layla Symington or Lelia? Because
Lelia.
I'm put Lilia. Okay, because I was
you had
afraid
it
we were
wrong
butchering that.
both ways.
And then you've got Matt Servito, of course, because as soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, from Sopranos fame. That must have been a
Yeah.
blast to work with him.
Yeah, like Carlo is one of the producers on the film. Had maybe like a mutual contact, I think, and sent him the script as like a just let me know what you think of this kind of thing with no expectation because he is a in demand, busy working actor and no expectation that he was going to even respond. And he ended up responding and saying like, I like this idea and I want to play John. And it's like, what?
Great.
Okay, you're John then.
Yeah, okay. Sure,
Yeah.
man.
Come on in.
So he like on set, he shows up and it's like you can't help but be so grateful that you're just like, yeah, sorry we have to stick you in this barn, but like we got a heater and stuff for you here, and thanks for coming and working on this project with us. But he was so just like, I love making stuff at this level because it is like this. Like you're not in a green room, you're in a barn in the woods, and it's
Right.
just it's a production that's fueled by passion. So
Yeah.
it gets a little more chaotic, but it's a little more interesting and moves a lot faster than because we have to move a lot faster than bigger productions. But
Yeah.
he's a big goofball on set until the cameras start rolling, and then he starts delivering, words that you wrote, and you just go like, "Oh, this guy's like a real actor."
Yeah, like so this is legitimate. Like,
Yeah, wow. It's almost like he's making these words sound pretty good.
yeah, I loved him in The Sopranos. He was great in that. I gotta
Yeah.
say too, this you've got one of the greatest log lines of any film. Like, now you see me, now you die. I mean, come on, that's just like the best.
Yeah, that's chalk that up to. I think somebody from marketing came up with that. I did not come up with that.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. So this is coming out on the 3rd of October, which, depending on when the interview gets released, to be right around that time. So,
Yeah.
and then it's hitting physical media on the 7th of November. Is that right?
Yep. So you
Okay.
can have I'm excited because I get a Blu-ray of my movie on my shelf, which is
That's
pretty cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, as you
Commentary?
can tell, yeah, because see, Mike wants to know immediately, are there going to be any extras on the disc?
No, there was no time
See,
to get extras out, but I will be trying to do. I will be trying to put some extras of what I can up on our YouTube channel, just so that there is something. There was just no time to actually get it on the physical disc.
Well, make sure
yeah,
you have Michael teach us how to do the Jester jig, as I've named it.
Oh, the dance.
Yeah, the dance.
Yeah,
That
yeah. He almost rolled his ankle doing that.
oh my
Did he
God.
really?
Yeah, apparently because the graveyards are full of holes in the ground. I guess that's where they keep the bodies.
I was wondering about. I was actually going to ask you about the cemetery. So, special permissions you need to
Yeah,
get?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We got permits and permissions for all of our shooting locations.
Yeah, I figured as much.
But that's the Mount Olivet Olivia
Oh, yeah, okay,
Cemetery,
right.
where Francis Scott Key is buried, and it is
Yes,
enormous. It's a huge
yes,
cemetery. So
yeah.
we got to shoot in the old part, which I prefer it because the older headstones just look more
Right,
interesting.
right.
Some of them have been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You must have been pleased with the location up there. I mean, there's some pretty nice
Yeah.
spaces up there to film, yeah. And again, it looked for those that are into this, so the technical piece of it, like, what did you film this with? The it's just, I mean, super HD, 4K, like, however you shot this, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, I had a lot of long conversation with Joe Davidson, our DP, before we started shooting, and we were trying to figure out what the look was going to be. And there were talks about like maybe we'll be able to like rent anamorphic lenses or something like that. And
Mhm.
I had said like I don't think this is an anamorphic movie. I think my fear is, I don't want to be accused in making a low budget movie doing all the tricks to make it not feel like a low budget movie. So we shoot anamorphic when in this kind of movie there's no need to shoot in that ultra wide format. It's just to
Mhm.
make it look legitimate, and that would be the only reason to do it. Shooting with
Mhm.
drones or things like that, it's like we're just trying to like manufacture production value without actually having it serve any other purpose. So
Right.
I wanted to shoot in 185 because I miss that format. I like when movies are in that. My favorite movie, Jurassic Park, is in that format, and Knives Out that came out
Mhm.
looks amazing, and that's
Mhm.
in 185. So there's something about something that fills the whole screen that I just miss on
Yeah.
our 16:9 TVs. So I wanted a 185 film, and I wanted to do film emulation. So we shot with kind of diffusion filters on the lenses. We shot with the Red Epic Helium 8K camera. We
Wow.
had two of those. And yeah, one was kind of reserved for keeping on the Steadicam rig to save us time if we ever needed to get a Steadicam shot, and then a couple scenes that we wanted a little bit more coverage because of certain circumstances, like when Markov's was open for the one
Mhm.
night that we shot to get the kind of the crowd in there when JC and her friends go in. That was two cameras just to make sure we're covering all our bases and everything. But it's amazing coming from kind of shooting your own short films with your own money for everybody's showing up for free, and you're
Mhm.
running out into the street to shoot something and didn't ask anybody to suddenly like have locations like we get to shoot in a bar, we get to shoot in a store. Like these
Right.
things are awesome to be able to do, and like to watch Joe and Jamie, our gaffer, light the inside of a convenience store. It was so
Mhm.
fascinating to me. I like that stuff is not lost on me.
Mhm.
So
Great.
like every part of the process, shooting with the gear, having somebody able to record audio on set is a privilege for me. So it's just like all these people are here to help me. Like it was yeah, you get imposter syndrome pretty frequently.
Well, now, when you got a couple of other screenings coming up, don't you? You got like a West Coast. There's a few others, aren't there, scheduled?
Yeah, tomorrow, the 29th, at the Lemley in LA, the Jester is going to be screening, I believe, for a week.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and then in Maryland, it'll have a screening, and that's where we'll all be, all the cast and crew,
Hmm.
on the 8th, October 8th.
Oh, nice. That'll be
Now, are you
nice.
going to be around? I see the Universal shirt. Are you going to be at Spooky Empire this weekend?
No, I'm not going to be at Spooky Empire this weekend.
Well, not this weekend, Mike.
Well,
You're hitting
I've got
you're
my
hitting the bottle again. Yeah, it's at the end of October. It's at the end of October. Yeah,
No, there's no plans on that right now. I think
yeah.
the focus. I've just been trying to keep up with all the release stuff and getting the movie out. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens with all like once the movie's out. I'm terrified.
Now,
If I'm
well,
being honest.
yeah. Like we said at the top, right? It's kind of that moment of You're like
Yeah.
It's
letting it go
also
up
the
to 10.
beginning. I mean, this is your first, first full feature.
Yeah.
It's gonna be exciting. I'm sure you have ideas, and having a good partner like Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you're off
it's
to a good
it's
start.
I love being able to hear, like last night it screened here, and finally being able to hear what people think of it, because as somebody who you feel like you're too inside of it, where it's like
Yeah.
you made the shorts and then you write the feature and then you shoot the feature and then you edit the feature and you give notes on like the sound for the feature and all this stuff, and all you can see at a certain point is an assembly of parts. You see, and then you are hyper aware of all the parts that are missing. They're all the parts that are broken, and it's like it's like standing an inch away from a painting. Like I can't see the whole thing anymore. I can see everything that makes it up. I can see all the mistakes. I can't see it as a one piece though. It's just you're too close to it. So it's I really like hearing what people say about it, and my question is always, was it like a real movie though? Like, did it feel like a real movie? So
Yeah.
it's scary.
Well,
Having your first thing come out.
and I think, if I think about some posts that I saw on maybe your account, or it might have been Dread put it out, but it's the one where it just says, "We did a thing."
Yeah.
I mean, but it's a big deal, and it kind of, you go back to your saying at the very beginning about how just kind of your initial interest in kind of movie making and how that happens and the behind the scenes, and now you're in that group.
And 20 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, the Jester, that's what started it all. So
Yeah.
It's that Walgreens, man. It's all about Walgreens.
Yeah. If you need inspiration for your next big thing, just stop by your local Walgreens and take a look inside.
Now, you mentioned Jurassic Park. So before we let you go, you mentioned Jurassic Park. We do like to kind of get every guest we have on, we try to get their top 5 films. So not
Top
to put you
5.
on so not to put you on the spot, but could you ramble off what your top 5 films would be?
5's a good number. I don't like the favorite film or top 3 questions, but 5 is like gives you some room to pick some.
Yeah.
Favorite films, I think for me, it is like, what are my favorite films, right? It's not what I think are objectively the best films of all time.
Right.
It's what my favorites are, and the ones that made me want to do what I want to do. And yeah, Jurassic Park is number 1. I think it's out of my control because it's just, and it came out the same year I was born, so I
There you
feel
go.
wow.
connected to it in that way. But yeah, Jurassic Park made me love what goes into making movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark and really all 3 of the original Indiana Jones trilogy made me love movies, and Jurassic Park made me love making movies. So Raiders is definitely up there. Back to the Future, it's just storytelling. Jaws, Alien. Alien is introduced me to like atmosphere. Like that's a movie that like maybe kind of like fucked me up a little bit, in that like my cozy movies now are like Seven and Zodiac, and it's like movies that are just like, ooh, warm little blankets, and I can put that on when it's raining and just have a lovely evening. And they're like grotesque and terrible, but Alien is like a perfect horror movie for me.
That's a great way to round it out. What about the Jaws? Horror movie or not a horror movie?
Jaws is just Jaws is like, it has horror elements to it, sure, but I just like hanging out with those guys. Like I like hanging out with those characters. I want to like live on that island. I just like, that's kind of, it's definitely a big conversation we had in making the Jester is, do we want these characters to be fodder, which is what you get sometimes in horror movies, and that's fine. That definitely has its place. Or do we want to care about these characters so that we don't want something bad to happen to them when it does? And I think, yeah, Jaws is definitely one of those movies where, like, you don't want any of those guys to get chomped. And
Yeah.
there's so many lessons to learn from Jaws. The presence of the shark permeates the whole movie, and it's barely in it. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
Jaws, I don't know if a lot of people have seen it, but Jaws is a good movie.
Very good. It's great.
We did
Great
a
movie.
review on it not that long, well, probably a year or so, and we forgot just how good it was.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, when I saw that in the theater, I remember, I don't know if I was with you, Dan, or probably someone else because you were too young, but I remember saying, you can do anything now on film. That was the film that made me believe that dinosaurs exist. You
Yeah.
know, that's amazing stuff.
Yeah, I wish I could have experienced that, you know, because in the original release trailer, I think for Jurassic Park, they didn't show any dinosaurs.
Correct.
Mhm.
You had to go to the theater to see them, and people
And,
were
and the way they revealed it, you see everybody's neck crane upward and their eyes popping out of their head. And
Yeah.
he teases you by showing
Mhm.
you them.
yeah,
And then finally turns it on the dinosaurs, and you're even more blown away.
Yeah, just
So,
the mere suggestion of it. Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Suggestions, teasing, wonder. These are things that I think a lot of movies don't have anymore. A lot of drama is lost in moments like that. The first time you see something in a movie should be a moment, and there's not a lot of moments anymore.
Yeah, we need more filmmakers like you bringing it back to basics. You know, the fundamentals. You know, so where for people, you know, where can people follow you? So in case they want to, you know, continue to track your work as you're going forward.
Well, I think the most active place I am on social media is Instagram, Colin K93, and otherwise, any work that we're going to post is going to be on our YouTube channel, Make Do Entertainment. That's where you can see all those other 3 Jester shorts,
Oh, good.
and any of our other short films too, where you can comment on those and say you want another Jester film, like everybody does. So, yeah, Make Do Entertainment, and just search my name. I'll pop up.
Well, that's
Well,
great.
enjoy the next week, the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks, and you know, don't forget to take time to enjoy it. Don't be so critical. Just
Yeah,
have fun. You know.
yeah, I was definitely reminding myself of that last night for sure.
Well, Colin, it's been great talking to you. Appreciate you coming on the podcast to chat
Yeah,
with us a little
absolutely.
bit. Yeah, and again, congratulations on the Jester, out October 3rd, video on demand, and then we get that physical media on the 7th of November. So I know Mike will be grabbing that.
Yeah, bring back physical media. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
common, but
That's
don't
not
lose
even
it.
like that's not even a 16th of Mike's collection back then.
Yeah,
So
I'm 360.
I
So
love it.
thousands.
I'm a physical media guy too, so
good.
we love our discs.
Yep.
Well, Colin, thanks again. We hope to talk to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys.
All right. Take care.
See you.